Everybody, Chris Pies here with another PCA Sim Racing Classroom. It's been a little bit since we've last had our last classroom from season 13. We have a new season upon us. It's season 14, and in season 14, we have got a new car and a new set of tracks. We will be racing the 992 Cup car. It'll be revisiting the series. We raced that one, I want to say, a couple seasons ago, or maybe 3 seasons ago. It's been a little bit. We've been in the GT3R for significant period of time at this point. So going back to the Cup car is always fun and a little bit different. And so it should be exciting. Again, the structure of the season is pretty much, or the series is basically pretty much what we've had in the past. There will be 4 classes of racing amongst the PCA Sim Racing group. And they are broken down into Pro, Club, Sport, and Challenge. And then I believe Entry also has their own set of racing or classes as well that happens on a different date. I want to say it's Sunday. If I looked at the calendar, if you have any questions about that, go to pcasimracing.com and you should be able to navigate to the series page, season 14, to be able to check out the calendar, the track list, and all of that. The first race of this series, or this season 14, is going to be Spa. It is a crowd favorite. Like I said, we'll be running the 992 Cup car, and we're in for a good time. So with that being said, do we have any new people that are here in the classroom that have never raced in a series before today? If you have, if this is your first time, chime up, because I'm interested to know if we have any new folks here. I'm hearing silence. Okay, so you guys probably all be veterans. You may all know how this goes. But if there are anybody that's shy, that's not, raising their hand or saying anything, welcome. This is a fantastic place to sim race. I think if you ask anybody that's been around here for any period of time, I think the consensus is pretty similar amongst anybody that you ask. The racing is very fair. It's some of the cleanest racing in iRacing, frankly. And the way we break up the skill levels into classes, there's always people to race of similar skill level. So people seem to really enjoy it. There's a lot of camaraderie amongst the group. We're all friends here primarily, and then secondarily, we get to compete as well. So, the big thing I want to say to everybody that goes out and races, and even folks in the pro class that have been doing it for a long time now, race others like you would want to be raced yourself. So the golden rule, but just as it comes to racing, if you're going out there and you are not leaving room, or you're banging doors with someone, or banging doors with the field, trying to get through the field to move up your position, expect to get raced that way on the receiving end. So usually you get paid back in the same way. So in order to do well in these races, you need to make sure you make it to the end of the race. In order to finish first you must finish and all that. So take care of your car, take care of your equipment, also take care of those that are around you as well. Make it fun for everybody, and everybody will have a good time. So the first thing I wanted to chat about is the car that we are driving. The car that we are driving is the 992 Cup. So I will pull up a picture of a 992 Cup just so we're not looking at boring screen on my end, or you're not just looking at my face. But the 992 Cup is been around in iRacing for a little bit. It is Porsche's development car, especially for its junior driver program in real life. One of the reasons why Porsche uses this car for developing its drivers is because of it. Basically, it has a way of really magnifying fundamental errors that drivers may have. If you have good fundamentals when you drive and you race and do performance driving, you're going to have a lot of success in this car. If you're relying on a lot of the driver nannies or aids in cars like ABS, traction control, and such to be able to get good lap times, this car is probably going to punish any of those faults. So some quirks about this car. The first thing, it is a spec car, meaning that all the cars in iRacing, all the cars are always set up the same because it's a simulator. But this is very much true. All the cars on the grid are going to be the same performance. The only thing that can change is the setup on the car, so your suspension setup. But in the Cup car, the amount of changes that you can make to the setup of the car are actually quite minimal. You can change the ride heights. You can change the wing angle, and you can kind of change the brake bias forward and back in the ARBs, the anti-roll bars. Outside of that, this car is what it is. And so it has a very peculiar way of handling from other race cars. The engine is back behind the rear wheels, typical 911 fashion, meaning that it has the majority of its weight in the rear. This gives it great traction coming out of corners, but this also causes the car to tend to understeer when you're trying to ask for maximum amount of lateral grip. There's very little weight over the front wheels relative to the rest of the car. So with no weight over the front wheels tend to slide across the track, and that's what leads to your understeer. To get performance out of this car, you have to learn how to brake efficiently. The guys that drive and gals that drive the fastest in this car are the ones that are the best at braking. Trail braking, threshold braking, anything to do with braking, coming off the brakes smoothly, keeping the balance of the car. You're going to see success if you are able to manipulate and manage your brakes effectively. If you are treating the brakes as an on-off switch, you're going to struggle a little bit in this car, and this car will magnify those mistakes and show you that that's where you need to practice and work on. And again, that's why it's a driver development car. Lots of power. In fact, probably in a straight line. This thing lacks the aero that the GT3R GT3 car has, meaning that this thing is a rocket ship. A straight line, it will be faster than a GT3 car. But in the corners and everywhere else, it lacks that downforce. It lacks the lateral grip, and therefore it won't be as fast as a GT3 around a normal circuit. Are there any questions about the Cup car, tendencies, struggles people are having with it if you've driven it in the past, or anything like that? This is the time to ask about the car.
Talk a little bit about how you like your brake profile specific to this car.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And one of the things that you can do with this car is modify manipulate your brakes. And when I say manipulate your brakes, I mean change your brake bias forward to rear. This car likes to have a more rearward brake bias, where if you were to say 0 is stock, meaning that your brake bias is just in the normal place where Porsche would put it, I like to, and most people I think would agree, dial it to the rear. So negative brake bias. What brake bias means is changing the balance of the braking force to favor one axle over the other. So if you are running more negative brake bias, that means you are putting more brake pressure on the rear wheels relative to the front. So if 0 is baseline, let's say, and you move it back 4-8 clicks, something like that, you're moving that brake pressure from the middle to the rear of the car. That has the effect of asking the rear tires to do more of the braking force, freeing up the front tires to do other things like turning, which means that they will have more grip on corner entry, and you'll get maybe a little bit more rotation in the car entering into a corner. So a more rearward biased braking profile is going to lead to more corner entry rotation. If you are finding yourself in a situation where the back end is trying to swap ends on you under braking, that means you're probably running too much rear brake bias. And one of the ways you can solve it, other than not changing anything else about your driving style, would be to move the brake bias to the front. More brake bias on the front axle means that you're asking the front tires to do more of the braking force, which means that they're going to lose grip quicker under turning, which means that the front end is going to understeer, which leads to a more stable car. It's going to be more understeer, you're going to get less rotation, but you're also not going to spin on corner entry. So finding that balance is very driver specific, but I think the tendency in the Cup car with the really fast drivers is to run a lot of rear brake bias because the car lacks front end grip. It's difficult to get the front end to tuck into the entry of corners. And so one of the ways that you can try to mitigate that a little bit and try to get that rotation is with that rearward brake bias. So I believe if you use the iRacing setups, and specifically the one for Spa, it already has -4.5 rearward brake bias. So it's already running pretty heavy rear brake bias in the setup already. But you can make those changes on the fly on your steering wheel if you bind it to one of your controls on your steering wheel to increase or decrease brake bias. You can do it on the fly while you're driving. So as the fuel burns off the car, the fuel tank on this car is actually in the front on the front axle. As the fuel gets lighter, the fuel load gets lighter. You're actually losing weight on the front axle, so that means the front end is getting even lighter, which means that the car is going to tend to understeer even more as you go through a stint. And as you're driving, you may want to click it more and more to the rear as that fuel burns off to kind of offset that balance shift. So hope that answers your question. Any other questions related to the cup tendencies, problems people are having?
Hey Chris, yeah, I got a question for you.
Sure.
How's tire management in this with tire wear over the race?
So tire management is okay. It will depend. It's very setup dependent and also very dependent on your driving style. If you are putting a lot of understeer in the car, you will burn the fronts off pretty quick. If you're getting a lot of rotation, you're kind of relying on the car to drift around corners. So, you're getting that early corner rotation. You're kind of just catching the car and having a very neutral steering angle while going through the corner. So the car is kind of sliding a little bit. You can get rear wheel or rear tire degradation quickly. But overall, you should notice that if you're driving within the limits of the car, the tires should make the hour-long session or however long these sessions are, should be able to make it. You shouldn't have to switch tires. The wear is also pretty consistent front to rear, at least from I've seen, at least at Spa, a little bit of practice that I've done. But again, depending on how you drive, depending on the track, is going to dictate the overall wear of your tires.
Thanks, Chris, and congrats on the wins this summer.
Oh, thanks. Any other questions? Okay, so
I just noticed that your track tips were 120. I did one session with 120. It was horrible.
Yeah, so that was the one thing I was going to say going into this little practice session is my track temps are 120. They are toasty. So higher track temps are going to yield, they're going to basically make the car, everything is going to get greasy. The hotter it gets in iRacing, the way the simulator runs, the higher the track temp, the less overall grip that's out there. The lower the temp, the more grip you've got. So 120 track temp is scorching from iRacing standards. There's very few races that I've actually even raced in iRacing that are anywhere in the 120s, unless you go to Coda, which can sometimes get up to 140, but that's a different story. But 120 is extremely high. So you will notice maybe lap times are not where you go if you go run in a 60-degree session. Fine, great. I personally like to practice on a very hot track. If you do that, then you'll know where the limit of grip is sooner. So when you go to a cooler track, all of a sudden you have all this newfound grip. So if you can control the car when it's kind of the greasiest, you can definitely control it when you've got all the grip at your disposal. So it's a good way to kind of set your eye with a new car or a car you haven't driven in a while. And then when you actually go back to a cooler state, you'll be pleasantly surprised at how much grip there is. So, so take it for a grain of salt. In terms of how we're going to drive the track, it's going to be very similar regardless one way or the other. You just may be able to have more corner or min speed or corner speed on a cooler track. So just keep that in mind. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to our chase, and what I'm going to do is show before I go too deep and we do the turn-by-turn analysis of this track, I'm going to just show you what it looks like from the cockpit with no interruptions. So we'll start off with that, and then we'll go into the analysis. So here we go, full speed.
Not sure if it's controllable on your side, Chris, but there's no cockpit audio coming through.
Oh, there's not? Okay. I will see what I can do. It may be a Discord thing. I'm getting it on OBS, so it's there. But we can... I'll know how to change that right now. Let's put it that way.
All good. Just wanted to let you know.
Thanks. You notice going through Puhan, my steering is like super neutral. I'm basically riding a knife's edge.
Hey, Chris, I think I have my headset working now. Can I ask a question about brake bias?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I am a first timer to the PCA series, so I'm very excited.
Oh, welcome.
I think on the default profile they gave us, I think the brake bias was set to like 42%. When the fuel starts to burn down, do you have any recommendation on how many clicks back we should put it?
It's a feel thing. Without knowing how you drive and your tendencies. I've done races personally myself where I've never touched it, and I've done other races where I've done maybe every 15 minutes I'm doing a click towards the rear. It just depends on the track. It depends on how you're driving at that time, how much grip's in the car, etc. So you want to maintain that balance, but all things equal, I could say you're probably going to end up doing, if you're really, really hypersensitive to the braking aspect of it, I would say a couple clicks over the course of the stint would probably serve you well to keep the car feeling a similar balance that you were having when you first started the stint. So maybe 2 clicks down.
Okay, thank you.
Each click is, I think, 0.5% or whatever they call it. It's not actually, you're not actually putting 40% of your braking or whatever on the rear or something like that. It's a percentage of whatever it exists. So, all right. So that was the lap. For those keeping score at home, just like I said, super, super scorching hot. We will go over the fast lap, although it was a little bit ragged on my part, but we can really kind of focus on the good stuff and where I made a couple mistakes. We can talk about that as well. So let's get this party started. Let me make sure I've got everybody's name up. Okay, so perfect. Okay, perfect. I've got it. Okay, so coming down into the first, or doing the lap, what I'll do is I'll rewind it just a little bit because I want to kind of show the pit entry. Pit entry for this track is a little weird. I'm assuming pit entry is going to be the Grand Prix pits. If anybody that knows otherwise, feel free to chime in. But assuming it's going to be the Grand Prix pit, this is your pit entry all the way here at the exit of the bus stop. Make sure that if you are planning on pitting on any particular lap, when you come through the first part of the bus stop, you're keeping the car to the right. Don't go sailing through this penultimate corner, the first corner of the bus stop, this right-hander, ending up all the way on track left and then cutting across the track to get to pit entry. Because if there's a car racing you, they may not expect that. They may come up alongside you and then you just cut across the track unexpectedly to get to pit lane and take them out. That's going to be on you, not on them. they did not have any reason to expect for you to do that. So when you come through the right-hander, make sure, one, you know if there's any cars around you, and two, if there is, declare by positioning your car in a good spot to go down pit lane, and signal that to them by keeping the car right. Okay, so coming through to start our lap, we'll talk about the bus stop at the end of the lap, but we're coming up to corner 1, La Source, a tight right-hander. La Source is kind of defined by, it's the quintessential slow in, fast out corner. The most important corners on any racetrack are the ones that connect the largest straightaways, and La Source leads on to effectively the longest straightaway at Spa. So what we need to make sure we're doing is we're getting a good run coming out of La Source. So in order to do that, we need to sacrifice the beginning, the quarter entry, in order to set it up for us to get on throttle as soon as possible and maintain that throttle through the corner and through exit. My break point is what I'm looking for, is I'm looking at these boards that are out here. So you got the 150 boards. I'm looking at this 100 board, and I am going to, from the cockpit view, when that board hits kind of like a certain spot in my peripheral vision, that's when I know I need to brake. And when I brake, it's going to be a pretty darn close to threshold brake. So I'm using as much of the braking force in the car as I can. The goal, what I want to do is when I start tucking this car into the corner entry and start turning into it, I want to start releasing that brake to try to maintain the balance of the car. And then ultimately, after I've done my initial turn in, I want to bleed off the brakes pretty darn quick so I can maintain my momentum, get the car all settled nice and pretty, roll on the throttle as I'm unwinding the wheel to get to full throttle on exit. This is, for me, a second gear corner. I don't go into first gear. First gear tends to just spin up the rears even faster, and it can risk, an oversteer situation and potentially a spin if I'm too aggressive with the throttle. I also tend to overslow the car if I go down to first gear. So this is kind of what it looks like coming into here. I'm braking, like I said, right there. It's been a while. I gotta get used to it. The lights, unfortunately, brake lights on the car are really dim, but it looks like right here. Right about here is where I'm getting on the brake pedal. So I've just gotten on it. As you can see, it's just before the 100 board. And then as I come in, I'm going to brake in a straight line because that's the most effective way that we can brake. We're using all of the grip in the car to slow us down. If you have any steering in the car whatsoever, while doing braking like this, you risk a lockup because the tires don't really like to do two things at once. They can do a little bit of turning and a little bit of braking at the same time, so that's trail braking. But if you are asking maximum brake pressure or maximum braking ability in the car, you need to be going in a straight line. Similarly, if you're asking for maximum turning ability in the car, you need to be off the brakes and coasting because you're asking the tires to do 100% of their grip in lateral grip to turn the car. So we're coming into the actual turn itself. Down here in the bottom left, you can see kind of my telemetry for the iRacing. So I'll start turning in. Basically, my eyes are down here at the apex. I start turning in after the 50 board, and that should be right around here. So yeah, you can see how late. This is my actual turn-in point. It's almost where the front end of the car is getting pretty darn close to the actual apex. I've slowed the car down to 55 miles an hour, so I'm going pretty darn slow. It always feels like I'm going to be turning in too early, frankly, and hitting this wall. But because of the speed and the way the corner is set up, you never actually end up happening. That never ends up happening. My goal through this corner, or my thought process when I'm doing this corner, is I want to apex this corner on the back end. So this corner is like a horseshoe. I want to apex it about 3/4 of the way through the horseshoe. So I'm coming around the corner, getting all my turn in done in this area where my mouse cursor is, to straight line it coming out the backside to straighten
Chris,
that. Yes.
you said 2/4. You meant 3/4, didn't you?
Say that one more time.
You said 2/4, which is halfway through the.
Oh yeah, I said
Sure.
3/4. Sorry. So two-thirds of the way around. 2 out of 3. So I've turned in. You can see right here. you can see a lot of the track in La Source. This means that you've got a lot of camber that's actually helping you, meaning the track is assisting the car like a bull turning through this corner. We want to use that. But my apex point is going to be, see, there is, right here is about where this red mark is, about halfway through. That would be the traditional apex point. I want to try to apex after it, maybe somewhere in this yellow. So let's see if I actually do it. So yeah, right there is where I'm actually apexing, which is about 2/3 of the way around the corner. You can see I've already picked up my throttle. Let's actually see where I start to pick up throttle. So here we are, we're coming in. I'm basically off. I have just a touch of brake left in it, but that's almost nothing. I'm almost completely off the pedals. Right here, I'm starting to pick up throttle. So I actually haven't hit my apex point yet, and I'm already starting to accelerate. That's how early I want to get on throttle to carry that speed coming off this corner. Again, look at all the track we've got. All this camber is helping us. It's almost like a half-mile NASCAR track in terms of the amount of camber that we've got. So we want to use that to kind of slingshot our way around this corner. Looks like min speed's probably going to be 39, 38 miles an hour. I'm starting to accelerate at this point. I'm in second gear through here. As I accelerate coming out of the corner, and notice how we see a ton of track and then we see a little bit less track on exit. That means the track is starting to flatten out. We're losing our camber as we come out of the corner. We lose that camber, we're going to lose our grip as well. So if we maintain a really sharp steering angle and just mash the throttle, once we lose that camber, the car is going to start to lose grip in the rear. You're going to start overpowering those rear tires. So in order to give the car more rear grip, we have to start unwinding the steering wheel. We're basically saying, okay, car, we want to turn that lateral grip into longitudinal grip. We want you to go forward instead of turning. So we start unwinding the wheel, adding throttle as we do it. I was always taught in racing schools and such, one way to think about it is imagine the bottom of your steering wheel is connected by a string to your brake or your throttle pedal. So as you turn the wheel, that string is only so long, and it's tight when you're it's tight. You can be full throttle when the steering is straight and the string is tight. When you turn the wheel, that tight string is going to pull up on the throttle pedal. You can't be full throttle and turning at the same time. So as you unwind your wheel, that is allowing you to push the throttle harder. So there's a string attached between the bottom of your wheel and the throttle pedal. If you keep that kind of analogy in your head or that thought, that will help you be smoother and keep your steering and your throttle and brake pedals kind of connected together. So unwind the wheel, more throttle. More steering, less throttle. As we come up, as we're unwinding this wheel, we're going to be using all of the track. We're not driving the car out to the curbing. We are allowing the car, with the grip that it has, by unwinding the wheel, to travel to where it needs to be on track. If we do it right, we're going to go all the way. We're basically just, I'm riding the edge of the grip in the car. Any more steering and the car is going to start to oversteer, and I'm going to have to start counter steering. I'm riding the grip of that car all the way until it gets in a straight line, but I'm doing it in such a way to where by riding that grip, it puts me all the way to track exit over here on this curve. I'm not driving it there. The car is just going there with the amount of grip that it's got on that particular corner. If you're doing it fast, you're going to end up all the way out here. If you end up in the gravel, two things have happened. You either apexed way too early on the corner, meaning that when you got back on throttle, you just ran out of room. Your car was not angled at the appropriate time. Or you kind of had an oversteer situation. You counter-steered and the car kind of pushed out. And again, leads to the same thing. You either went too fast at the corner or you apexed too early. If you are ending up over here on track and you've got room on exit, you were either apexing too late, which is better than apexing early, or you overslowed the car through the corner and you can go faster. And by going faster, you will force that car that's over here to push out here. Ultimately, this is the goal, to end up out here, second gear. We've been full throttle basically after apex at this point, unwinding the wheel, and we're on our way down to Eau Rouge and the Kimmel Straight. Again, very important corner, La Source. because of how long we're going to be full throttle. All right, coming up to Eau Rouge. The big thing about Eau Rouge in this particular car is you have to get your line perfect. The GT3 cars have a ton of downforce on them relative to this car, and they are easy flat out through here. The Cup car doesn't have at all the downforce, so it can't. Well, maybe on a cooler track you can go full flat out. I was so close to being flat at 120 degrees. It makes me think that if it's like 60 or 70 degrees, you can be flat. But your line has to be just money to make it work. The best way that I can kind of explain how to take this line is you just have to trust and have clear markers on your way in through this corner. The problem with Eau Rouge is you can't see what's over the hill. So your sight lines, normally when you're driving and you're racing, you should be looking way down track. Your car is going to go where you're looking. Your hands would automatically steer you there. So the best way to drive in racing is to look way down track. Look at the next corner as soon as you can see it, and you will drive the car there. For Eau Rouge, your sight picture and your ability to look down track becomes nothing on your way up the hill because you cannot see over the hill. So all of a sudden you are blind to 100 yards past the front of your car. And it makes it very difficult to be able to pick out a marker when you're looking at sky on the way through. So in order to combat that, we have to find spots in the track on the way through that we know that if we run the car over those certain spots, the car will end up in a good spot on the backside of the hill. So coming down into this left-hander, we are going to use all of this left-hand curbing. So we're going to get the car all the way over. If you cut it too much, you will get an off track and potentially even a slowdown. But this is legal. I've got my right side tires. They're still touching the white line. This is 100% fine. And you may get away with a little bit more. I'm not exactly sure where the cutoff point is, but my rule of thumb is keep at least 2 tires touching the white line, which is the track. We want to use all of this because ultimately what we're trying to do is widen this right-hander up the hill. That is the tough part of Eau Rouge, is the right-hander coming up the hill. So we want to take, the tendency is to try to steer and go really early towards this curbing, but that's where you'll run out of space on the top end without knowing it. So what we want to do is we want to delay our turn in just a little bit, and we want to apex like La Source really late up the curbing, but we want to use all of this curbing. So we want to get the car up on it and basically almost be touching the grass. So I'm going to look at my throttle trace too to see if I am flat. I don't think I am. I think I lift right around here. Yeah. So I'm doing a little bit of a chicken lift to maybe 85% just to get the front end to turn. So as soon as you get off the throttle, the weight of the car relatively is going to shift forward just a touch. That shift forward of throttle or weight transfer is going to put more weight on the front tires. More weight on the front tires means more front end grip. That'll allow the car to turn better. So a little bit of a lift is just enough to get the front end to point. And then as soon as I get it pointed and I get the car pointed at where I want it to be up the hill, I know I'm golden. Where that spot is tough, and we'll get into the cockpit here in a second to really kind of try to analyze what it looks like on the way up. But you can see I am taking all of the curbing, almost touching the grass, but at this point now I'm full throttle on the way up the hill.
In 6th or 5th?
I am in 5th gear here. I do not shift to 6th until over the crest. So you'll get all the way up to red line, and your lights might even flash blue, which means shift. You're getting close to red line. There's no point in doing it before the hill because as soon as you turn in, you're going to lose revs and lose speed. And you need that 5th gear, that torque in the torque band to carry you up the hill. You're going to lose a little miles an hour on the way up. And then when you crest the top, then you can grab 6th and you're on your way. When we crest the top, we should end up somewhere around here. We're going to go through a little bit of dip. We need to make sure our hands are really straight. We don't have a lot of steering angle because once we hit this little transition here, it can really upset the car if you've got a lot of steering angle. Our right side tires need to stay on the curbing, so right of this second white line here. So it needs to stay somewhere in here to avoid the off track and the slowdown. And then once we catch on the back end of the curbing, you'll see the car bump right there. It will grip up again. Nice quiet hands all the way through. Use all of the track. The more steering angle you've got through Eau Rouge, the more friction you're putting in the tires and the more speed you're going to scrub. Or I should say, the less the car will accelerate because it's having to overcome that friction. So you're not going as fast. The quieter your hands, the faster you will maintain your speed going through. So again, let's go back and look at this from the cockpit and see if we can get a better idea of that second apex up the hill. And this is a tough one. I mean, this is probably one of those spots where people have the most trouble, is Eau Rouge, especially in a cup car, because it's not turn your brain off flat. Okay, so as we're going to really slow it down. Oh, sorry. So we're coming up. We're going to, again, use all of this curbing. Our eyes should be up here at the curbing. We turn in just after the curbing, a little bit of a lift, and we're trying to get up on the grass. You can see how late I am when I get up on this curbing. It's basically I am apexing almost where I can see where the curbing ends at the top of this crest. That's how late it is. Another thing we may be able to look at is the access road coming out of pit lane to see how close it is. This can be another visual clue, is like, okay, when those two roads are kind of coming together, I want to be apexing at that point. We could also maybe look at the tips of the trees. This second tree right here, when it comes into view, I should be up on the curbing at my maximum apex point, pointed at this second tree right here. If I'm right there, boom, I'm okay. Now, we don't want to drive to it because that will put us cutting it off, but our apex point on the curbing on the way up, if we're looking for that tree, okay, apex there, good. And then I want to drive to maybe this third tree. That might be a clue that we can use going through there. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of repetition to kind of get it to where it's feeling normal and natural. Don't expect to go through there flat or even as fast as this with this tiny little mini lift your first time through, or your 10th time through, or your 50th time through. Only work up to it. If you have to take more of a lift or even do a full lift on the way in, do it. Make sure that you're getting the car in a good spot first and you're not cutting the corner and taking slowdowns. And then as you realize, I know what that feels like now, I can maybe carry another 5 miles an hour through there. Try it, see what it is. Oh, I still held it. Perfect. Maybe another couple miles an hour. And just keep that, ramping it up until the point where you get to the point where, okay, I'm out of control. I can only do this 8 times out of 10, because that's not good enough. You need to be doing it 10 times out of 10. All right, any question between La Source and Eau Rouge and Radeon?
You might want to mention that active reset is great for practicing right here.
Yes, good point, Acker. So what Acker is mentioning is active reset. So iRacing has a brilliant tool built in. It's been in for a couple of years now. In your options tab, in fact, I think I can do it. So if I go into options here, control, other controls, down here it says active reset save start point, active reset run. Basically what this does is you can bind a button to set an active reset spot. So you're basically bookmarking a part on the track. So let's say you come out of La Source, you're in a straight line and you're coming up to Eau Rouge. If you hit that active reset start point, you'll hear a little badoop from the game. And that has set a bookmark in the lap. Go through Radeon, go to the top, and then you press the second button, which is reset. And what that will do is it will automatically teleport the car back to where you hit the start point. So you could just keep doing this over and over and over, resetting that start point. And it will actually, if you have your lap time actively running, it will show you if you're gaining speed, losing speed in real time on your way through that section. So it's a great tool to be able to use use it to just hammer out a certain part of a track instead of having to go all the way around and do it again every 2 minutes. So great point. Okay, so we made it through Radeon and we're now cruising down the Kimmel. Everything's good. Let's Go back to chase. And now we are coming up to... Remind me what this is called. Is this called Lacombe? This section of corners? I'm going to call it that. So this little right left-hander coming through here. Very technical section. We have a right, left, and then another final right. There is one corner that matters out of all this, and that is the final right-hander at the end of this segment. The first two corners are basically throwaways. Now, we want to set ourselves up in the best position that we possibly can for the final right-hander, but we don't want to, put ourselves, we don't want to completely forget these first two corners because they're crucial in setting us up for that final right-hander. So coming off this corner here, we're going to be braking somewhere before the curbing here. I like to be before the 100, so I'm watching the 100 come up, and I know that I'm going to lift and then get on the brakes before this point. GT3 cars can go all the way to the curbing. The Cup car cannot, so I'm probably braking about, I don't know, maybe 4 car lengths before the curbing if I'm on a qualifying run. If I'm in a race and I'm riding behind somebody, I'm probably going to lift sooner to make sure that I don't run into the back of them in case they get on the brakes too early. But ultimately, it's going to be somewhere right around here is your brake point. And it's going to be dependent on the amount of grip and the track type as well. And then I'm going to bring the car as far over to the left as I can. You can get up on this curbing if you really want to open up the right-hander. I don't like it because it kind of upsets the balance of the car, but you'll see some people do it to open up the right-hander. I'll downshift to third gear, get them all done. I always feel like I'm turning in early here, and the reason for it is I want to get down on this corner as early as possible where this green is, and I want to put my right side tires on this green paint inside the curbing. You'll also notice you can see a lot of corner, which means we've got some camber that is helping us turn. So I want to take advantage of that. I want to get this car down a little early, take advantage of the camber, and basically maximize the radius of this corner. If I take it too late, I'm going to overslow the car. Like if I take it like I did in La Source turn 1 and take this line where my cursor is, I'm going to overslow the car to get through the right-hander. So we're coming off a really fast straightaway. I want to maintain as much of that momentum and that speed as I can on the way in. So you'll see I turned in. I've got my right side tires up on the green. It's going to get a little bit of a bump here, but it should be okay. My pedals are very quiet all through this section. I'm not doing a whole lot except with minimal braking inputs. And the whole point of this braking is to keep weight on the nose of this Cup car because it doesn't like to turn if there's no weight on the nose. So a little bit of brake keeps the front end engaged. All the way down, straddle this curbing, right side tires on the green. As long as you keep your left side tires left of the white line or on the white line, you're good. We don't want to get into the gravel because that will slow us down and risk us getting a 1X. So this is pretty much as best a line as I can take. I want to take this corner as long as I can to try to open up this left-hander. It's not because I want to open this left-hander to be faster. It's because it makes it easier to pinch this left-hander off on the exit. What I mean by that is instead of tracking out like a traditional corner, track out to about mid-track and get the car over immediately for the final right-hander. So don't want to go past mid-corner as much as best we can. Immediately we're going to shift to the left. There's kind of two schools of thought amongst this left-hander. One of them is straddle the curbing and use this gray area as turning points because you are kind of cutting the corner, which theoretically should be a shorter route. The other thought is as soon as you get up on this curb and you get up on this gray area, you lose the camber of the track. So the track is angled like this, but once you get on the curbing, it flattens out. And so if you get up on that curbing too much, you now have no camber to help you, so it's harder to turn the car. So some people like to keep it nice and clean through here and just get their left side tires on this rumble and ride it around and use the camber of the track to maybe carry a couple extra mile an hour. Some people like to cut it, go a little bit slower, but they're not traveling as far. And the result is it depends on what you're comfortable with and what you can repeat. Whether one is better than the other, I would say try both and see if one yields faster lap times. For me, I haven't really seen much of a difference between the two. It's kind of a whatever works best for you. So try it at your leisure. But on this particular case, I believe I take some on the left hand. Yeah, so I'm cutting it. So I'm getting over the curbing and kind of straddling the curbing on the way through. So shorter distance, slower speed. I don't want to go past mid-track here because I need to get this car all the way over. So that steering angle that I've got in the car is maximum lateral grip. It won't turn anymore. I'm just holding that all the way through here, and it will put me over here on the left side. So this constant angle through here is, you'll notice my steering angle down in the bottom left. I'm just kind of holding it all the way through, and the car puts itself over here on the left side near this curb. Once I get the car over here on the curb, I'm immediately starting to turn to the right. It's almost like skiing downhill. So I've just done one part of a ski. Now I'm leaning on the other ski to turn the other way. Notice I have no inputs on my pedals. You can get away, especially if it's a grippier track, without even touching the brake going into this right-hander. Just lifting off, coasting, getting the car to take a set, turn in, and just ride just kind of coast through here. And then you're waiting to pick up that throttle as soon as you get the car turned in. Again, on the way through here, we want to get our right side tires up on the green, much like the first right-hander, to extend and kind of cut this corner. I missed it on this particular lap.
Chris, what gear are you in going through this section?
Third gear all the way through. So I don't grab fourth until the exit right here. And this is where I grab fourth. Or on my way down is after this corner as I grab fourth. Now, let me make sure I'm not lying. Yeah, I'm still in third through here. So through that whole section, I am riding third gear. Nope. So ideally, you want to get up on this curving, get on that green. I missed it on this particular lap. And then as you come out, depending on how aggressive you've been on the entry end of this corner with the throttle, you may get oversteer. You can actually see the car starting to kind of step out, and you'll actually see my steering catch it. So at this point, I've actually got an oversteer situation. The back end is slowly trying to swap ends with me, and I've already started my counter steer to catch it. But I have enough room where I can catch it right on the edge. Ultimately, your car should be right out here with your left side tires on this green if you're maximizing your speed through that right-hander. If you're ending up over here on the right side, you could have carried more speed. If you're putting tires in the dirt consistently, you're either early apexing the right-hander or you're going too fast. My money would be on early apexing. You're turning in too early. But ultimately, we want to be here. If we look at, let's see if I can get fancy real quick. Get off that. If we go to my telemetry on this particular corner, which would be 5 and 7, if I hit my little telemetry button, boop, that's not it. That's it. Okay, so you should see my telemetry here. What we're looking at on terms of telemetry is we're looking at my throttle trace right here, my brake trace right below it, and then my steering angle, I believe I also have on here. The big thing here is my throttle trace. You can see when I am grabbing my, third gear through here, this final right-hander, that is this part right here on the throttle. You can see that I am getting to throttle pretty darn quick and riding it through. I had a little bit of an oversteer, so that's where I did the little oversteer and then back and then went through it. You'll notice on the brake pedal, I maybe just barely brushed the brake to get the front end to take a little set. Yeah, just a little set right there. That's what this little blip is, but almost no brake through here. And in fact, this is coming off of the Kimmel Straight, this brake trace right here. And then so through the right-hander, so this is the right-hander, this is the left-hander here. I'm not touching the brakes at all. So no brakes through that part, and I'll rewind it to that point. So right here. So after I'm off the brake at this point, off the brake here, I don't touch the brakes. No brakes, no brakes, no brakes. A little bit of brake, no brakes. Throttle, ride the throttle through. So you really don't need a lot of brake through that section, if any at all. Okay. So coming down into the tight right-hander. I like to treat this as a double apex right-hander. What I mean by double apex is we're going to take 2 apexes on the way through. We're all downhill. The track is and gravity is working against us. There's really not a lot of grip on entry. So what I'm trying to do is get the car pointed in a good direction to get turns started. Do my braking in a straight line. Let the car kind of drift out and then bring it back and get a good acceleration coming out, kind of like turn 1 that we discussed before. So what that looks like is coming in, brake in a straight line. There's my first apex point. The car will move and drift out. This is in second gear. Coast, and then apex point 2 as I was accelerating through. I missed my second apex a little bit. I could have been a little tighter to the curb, but that's the general gist of what we're trying to do here. So if I show it again. Apex 1 is where the green is. I am off the brakes at this point. So I'm about halfway, a little before halfway through the corner, and I'm not touching the brakes anymore. Because I've got steering angle in the car, significant steering angle, that is going to slow the car down. I have friction from the front tires is going to slow me down, not the brake pedal. I want to be off the brakes because I want to at least conserve some momentum going through. And then I just wait for the front end to catch up. And then as soon as it starts to come in, I'll get back on throttle. So let's see where I start to get back on throttle. So I'm off the brakes here, front end, and then I'm starting to pick up throttle here. Car has already taken a set and started tucking in, so my radius of my turn in the car is getting tighter relative to the corner. So I'm coming in, and as I'm coming in, I'm using the throttle to steer the car. As I pick up throttle, the front end is going to start pushing out, and it's going to put me on line where I want to be. So I've added throttle, added throttle, added throttle. I'm full throttle here, opening my hands, using all the track, letting the car track out to where it needs to be. Now, you don't have to be all the way on track left here. You can be mid-track. That's totally fine. It's just kind of preference on how you took that tight right-hander. Ultimately, we want to do for, I believe this is called no name, we want to get the car all the way over to the right, much like the final right-hander at Lacombe. Lacombe. We want to get the car all the way over to the right in order to set up for the left-hand turn. This is the corner that kind of really matters, and it's very, very fast. I always feel like I am turning in too early for this corner, but it always works out because, again, we're still going downhill. The gravity is fighting us a little bit, but at the apex point, you can see a lot of the track, so you have some camber that is helping us. We're going to tuck in, turn in, and get off the brake really fast to try to maintain our momentum. So the brake pedal there is just to set the front end while we do our initial turn in, so we get a good positive turn in, and then as soon as the car kind of turns in, hop off that brake pedal and conserve that momentum and carry it through. We're waiting, being patient to where we know that we've got the car in a good spot to accelerate out of it. And once we know that the car is starting to turn in and start to go down to the apex, we can add that throttle to get that front end to kind of understeer out and push it on line where we want to be. Our vision needs to be up, our eyes need to be up, we need to be looking through the corner, we need to be looking way down track to make sure that when we hit apex here, we'll be in a good spot on the way out. So I've started picking up throttle, I'm kind of manipulating that throttle. I went to throttle a little too early on this particular lap, had to come out of it and then went back to it again. You don't want to do that. You want to, when you go to throttle, you want to be positive and only increase throttle. If we do it right, we end up all the way on track right side tires touching the gravel or nipping at it just a little bit. If we kick up a little dust, that's totally fine, but that's the fast way through it. Again, at apex, we want to be using, not on this big sausage of a curb right here. We don't want to get up on this curb because that's going to unsettle the car. We want to get up close to it. All right, any questions before we hit Puan? All right, hearing none, we'll keep going. I know it's kind of rapid fire, but that's unfortunately we have a lot we have to get through. Okay, so Puan is another signature corner for Spa. It's designed to make your car understeer, and that's the tendency of the 911 Cup on its own without having Puan to go through. So we just need to manage it effectively. This is going to be another double apex corner. We are going to brake and turn in about halfway down this rumble strip here. When we brake, we're going to downshift into fourth gear, and we're going to hold fourth gear all the way through the corner. So a pretty decent brake pedal. We're headed downhill. The car's not going to slow down very much. We're going to ride that brake pedal really long, and we're going to tuck the car in with the goal of getting the car to apex late on this first part of this curbing. Well, this first curbing late on it. So somewhere around the corner, right around where my marker is. Unfortunately, there's not like a clean spot that you can pick out where this is a perfect spot to be, but we can mitigate that by looking down track. We're looking for the exit curbing down here. If we look at that exit curbing, we'll automatically apex where we need to apex. It's a lot of coasting and a lot of little mini trail braking through this first part of this corner. But once we get the car to really take a set and finally kind of stop its understeer, we'll start to pick up throttle on the way out of this first apex. We're in fourth gear, like I said. We'll go to full throttle, and once we go to full throttle, we are riding this pony all the way out on full throttle. So we're committed. We know that we're not going to run wide because we had a good angle. We late apex that first apex. At this point, it's just a constant holding of your hands. In one big wide arc will ultimately bring you down to the second apex around the next corner and bring you all the way out through Puan. We'll grab fifth when we hit red line, but ultimately we are just kind of riding it all the way through, hitting the second apex right here with that constant steering angle and tracking out at the end. This all sets up from the first part of Puan. You got to get your braking part or your braking right, your turn in right, and that first apex right. If you get that right, when you go back to full throttle, the corner does itself. The second half of the corner does itself.
It looked like on your entry to the first apex, you're a half a car width away from the apex, if I saw correctly.
Yeah, on this particular corner, or on this run, I missed it. I try to go too hot, and this is the tendency of Puan. Brake a little later, because when you go in here, every time you go in here, if you do it right, it always feels like you could have gone a little faster. Oh man, I could have turned in a little later. I could have gone a little faster, broke a little later. And the tendency by doing that is it's too late, and you'll never ever get down to it if you carry too much speed. So on this particular lap, yeah, I missed it. I missed it by about half a car width. And if when you miss it like that, you have to slow the car down even more and delay getting to full throttle because you are not on the ideal line. So that one's on me through that corner. But good, excellent eyes. You'll also see through here the tendency, and you may get this later on in the run when your tires start to kind of fall off. And it depends on your setup. So much of this depends on your setup. If you're running a lot of rear wing, the more rear wing you run, so the more rear downforce you have, the less this becomes a problem. Lots of rear downforce is going to stick that rear of the car into the ground like glue. It's going to add understeer, but it's not going to allow the car to rotate mid-corner, especially through Puan. If you're running, this is just the iRacing Spa setup, which I think has an 8-wing, which is like mid-wing. The car, if you're right on the edge and you're in super high speed, the car will have a tendency to start kind of rotating, especially as things heat up. So you'll actually notice if you look at my steering here on the way through, look what I'm doing. The car's stepping out, I'm riding it, I'm basically catching the slide all the way through Puan. So it's an absolute razor's edge. My steering is almost neutral, and the car is just kind of drifting around. It's fast, but it's risky, right? Because if you're not quick or you're not comfortable with that, you run the risk of spinning and ruining your race, ending your race right there. So run a setup you're comfortable with. Understand less wing is going to lead to Puan to be a little sketchier.
I was going to say, Chris, you really got to listen to your tires as you're going through that second section where you're flat out, and indeed make those micro corrections to straighten the wheel to kind of stop that slide, that turning
Yeah.
from happening too much.
You can do it with your tires, and iRacing has a setting that you can increase the volume on your tires to they'll start yelling at you when they're starting to let go. The other thing you can do is as you're going through the corner, when you're at the point where you feel like you're at the absolute limit of grip, if you're in tune with your car and you're giving it like you're asking it to do maybe a little more, like you're wiggling your hands just a little bit to feel where the grip is, when you do that, if the car is not reacting to your steering inputs, you're at your limit of grip, right? If you turn it a little bit more and the car doesn't turn anymore, it's because the car can't. You're at the absolute limit of grip. So by going through Puan, especially that first part, or where that right at the maximum apex where you're furthest out on the right side, if you give your car like a little bit of a wiggle, just and a very faint wiggle, and you're not feeling any reaction from the car by doing it, you're at the maximum limit. There's nothing more you can do with the steering other than catch a slide to tighten the radius. The only way you're going to tighten your radius down is to lift off the gas to get the nose to tuck.
And if you do feel that you're starting to rotate, indeed straighten out your wheel, even go off track on the right, because yes, the 1X is not great, but it's a hell of a lot better than running into the wall on the inside.
Absolutely. Look where all the runoff is. If you start like right here where I got my little wiggle, like this is a pretty big wiggle at this point, and I catch it. But look at all the runoff. You could just open your hands and drive the car straight and like slowly get out of the throttle to save it and catch it and then drive it back and continue on and just you'll probably already serve your slowdown because you'll be going slower anyway. Great. If you try to be a hero and save a crazy slide, you're going to J-hook it out into the right wall hard. Or you're not going to catch the slide. You're going to do this lazy inside spin. You're going to hit the inside wall. Just open your hands, go straight, use this runoff. That's why it's built this way. And live to fight another day if that happens to you. Know where you can mess up. Like if you play golf, I've been playing a lot of golf, so sorry for the analogy. But if you play golf, it's like a fairway, right? Where you got water on the left, and you've got just rough and open area on the right. Yeah, it's not the fairway, but if you make your mistake out in the open area, you can play from out there. If you make your mistake on the left side because you're trying to be a hero, you're going to put it in the water, well, you're going to take your stroke penalty. So play where the mistake can be made, and you'll live to fight another day. All right, so that's Puan. Fun corner. All right, we're going to come up to the next set, the next right left. Very similar to the turns to Lacombe. It's just very similar. The radiuses are a little bit different, and the dynamic of the track is a little bit different. We can carry more speed through this section, but the ultimate idea is the same. We're going to turn in. We're going to try to get our right side tires up near or on the curbing on the right. We're going to kind of go to about mid-track, do the ski thing where as soon as we get the car straight, we're going to turn to the left. We're going to get up on the curbing on the left, try to cut as much of the corner as we can, and then let the car drift out as normal in that front. So there's one less corner in that series, but it's still a double. So the right side, we're going to brake. Let me give you a brake point. Brake point is going to be just before the bridge. So you see this little Total Energies bridge? Perfect place, or perfect brake marker. I tend to brake just before it. So I'm braking right there. So a little bit before it. GT3 cars, I go all the way to it. This car is just a little bit before it. We're going downhill, so it's going to take a while for the car to kind of slow down. And then we're going to do a pretty big trail brake into here. Still on the brakes, still on the brakes. Now I start to pick up a little bit of throttle. Notice my right side tires trying to get up on that green. It helps the car turn a little bit if we can get up on this curb. We don't want to go past mid-track right here, but as soon as we get parallel to the track, boom, we transition to go to the left. We have a little bit of a brake. Anytime we're doing that initial turn with the front end, a little bit of brake helps that front end bite. So we're doing that front end bite. We're going to bring the car all the way late apex. If we can get up on this curbing, great. On this particular lap, I didn't, but if you get up on the curbing, you're cutting a little bit more. It also helps turn the car too. So that's not a bad thing. And then keeping our vision up, we know that we can get on throttle early as soon as we get the front end of the car in a good spot, like right there. As soon as I grab the throttle, the rear of the car set, it actually helped to rotate it just a touch, just enough so when I'll get a good squirt coming out of this corner. So this is third gear through here, but watch this again. If I go really slowly, watch the car, right, boom, it gets a little bit more rotation, and that helps me get through that corner by getting on throttle. We can get out if we nip like I did right there, if we nip the gravel, it's not the end of the world. Ideally, we want to just get right up to it without getting into it. But getting on it is fine too. That was not a 1X. It's perfectly fine to carry the momentum through there.
Hey, Chris, sorry, just real quick. Did you say third gear through that last section?
Yes, third gear through there. I grabbed fourth in here. And let me make sure I'm not lying to you real quick by looking at my telemetry. Fifth, fourth, third. Yeah, I'm third through there.
Yep.
All right, coming up to the double right-handers of Stavolo, I believe is what they're called. Stavolo 1 and 2. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to be braking. I like to take third gear through the right-hander, move the car all the way to the left side. We're going to brake just before the curbing. We're going downhill still. Stavolo 1 has really got a problem with there's not a lot of grip on entry. So it always feels like you're fighting understeer through this first part of the corner. So in order to combat that, we need to stay on the brake a little longer, trail brake a little longer, and then also turn in a little early because the front end's going to slide. So by turning in early, we're anticipating that understeer. So by the time the car grips up and actually does turn, we'll be right on line. So if we turn in too late, we'll totally miss the corner. So I always feel like I'm early. I'm trying to aim the front end of the car at the green on the inside of this corner in third gear. Notice I've already turned in. I'm still on the brake pedal. Not a lot, but a little bit. Still on the brakes. Now I start to pick up throttle. As we come through the corner, the bottom is going to... The track is going to stop going downhill and is actually going to flatten out. So we're actually going to get grip from the compression on the exit or immediately past the apex of Stavolo 1. And so that's going to help us get us to the turn. But if it was downhill the whole way at the same rate, we would just understeer off the gravel every single time. It always feels a little weird until you get practiced. But again, get up on the curb as we can. It'll help turn the car, late apex, and then trust that that grip will come after the apex. Get on throttle early, opening your hands, and you should end up all the way on track left. You can do second gear through here. Like the car will do it, but I don't like the car revved out. You're putting so much torque through the rear wheels. You're just risking lighting them up if you lose grip, or you have too much steering angle, and then you're gonna have to come out of the throttle to kind of save it. Third gear allows me to maintain my momentum, use more of my throttle pedal, and get a good run coming out. I just like third gear better. We'll come all the way down, and then Stavolo 2 is a bit... I hesitate to say turn in early because you don't want to turn in early. This is a super late apex corner. But you always feel like you're turning in early for much of the same reasons as Stavolo 1. The front end of the car is going to understeer, but you've got to anticipate that. But you're still planning for a super late apex. So as I'm looking at this right here, my apex point is over here around the corner, like where the Armco and the curbing are kind of meeting. That's where I'm trying to actually apex this corner. But I turn in super early, anticipating the understeer because I am not braking for this corner. I am keeping throttle. So the front end is light. We're still going a little bit downhill, but you can actually see it starts to go uphill after we go through this corner. So we're going to get grip about midway through this corner. And once we get that grip, that's where it'll grip up. And then we'll hit that second apex, or we'll hit that apex where we want to. But it's almost full throttle. I think on a cooler track, it would be full throttle. So I'm doing a little bit of a lift on the way in, waiting. And then once I realize I'm going to hit that grip point right here at the compression zone, boom, full throttle, opening my hands all the way and kind of riding it through. But super late apex. Like that's actually one of the things I wanted to show from the cockpit here is like, where's the apex, do you think? Do you think it's here? Do you think it's here? I think it's over here. So let's see where I actually hit. Way here, way around the corner. Like I am apexing past the truck, the front nose of the truck, right? So if you keep your eyes up, you see that little hut? That's probably easier to see than the truck, basically. But that little hut, if you are apexing this corner at the hut, like right, this is your apex point, the tightest point of the corner, and you're aimed at the hut, you're going to run into the gravel on exit. You need to still be coming in tighter past the hut.
I see you in fourth. To short shift?
I short shift to fourth, yes. Because I want to be full throttle and just riding this thing through. I don't want to be grabbing a shift halfway through the corner because that's going to upset the balance of the car when the transmission shifts. So I grab fourth, which is actually a really good point. It's not really a short shift. So like I'm in third. It's blinking at me fourth. I grab fourth right before I turn in.
That's because you're faster than us.
Well, but I would, even if you don't have that much speed going into there like that, I would recommend grabbing fourth before you do your turn in there. It'll keep the car balance better. All right, now we got a straightaway, and we come up to the infamous Blanchiment. I was experimenting with 2 different ways to handle this. Part of me was like, oh, well, let's just bounce it off the limiter and keep it in 5th, because when we turn in for Blanchiment, we're going to do a little bit of a chicken lift, turn in, and then back on it. And you could keep it in 5th gear. But I felt like everything was a little more balanced in 6th. The jury's still out a little bit, but my fastest lap was kind of short shifting to 6th before my turn in point. So for Blanchiment, the big key is super quiet hands. We want to extend this corner, so make this corner as wide as possible. We have to absolutely get down to the apex point. The apex point of this corner is where the track meets the curbing. We don't want to get on the curbing because it will upset the hell out of the car. We want to get all the way as close to the curbing as possible. And always with the idea of opening our hands. We're opening our hands, opening our hands, opening our hands. So our vision has to be up because we're going 154 miles an hour. The faster we go, the further down the track we have to look. So my turn-in point, honestly, I don't really know where it is. I am looking to the apex. So basically, as soon as I can kind of see the curbing, which I'm barely starting to see it right now. I don't know how the resolution is on Discord, but I'm barely starting to see the curbing here. I'm going to start turning into it as soon as I can start seeing it. So there's more curbing, more curbing. Okay, I see it. I am driving down to that curbing with the idea of getting down as close as I can. Again, 154 miles an hour. Everything is coming super fast. So you have to anticipate this curbing. If you wait until you actually see it to actually start your turn-in point, you're going to miss it. So I am starting the actual physical turn of my wheel here. That's where I've started turning. Car is not turning yet, but because it takes a second for the suspension and everything to load up. But my wheel has started to move at this point, and I can't see the curbing. Now, when I go down into it, I'm doing a little bit of a lift. So it's a pretty significant lift. I'm down to about 50% throttle on entry. And then I'm turning, steering it down, and then notice all the camber here. I'm going to use that camber to my advantage. It's like a bowl. It's going to slingshot me through. Once I get down to apex, boom, back to full throttle. It balances the car out. It puts all the weight on the rear tires where I want the grip because I don't want to oversteer. So I'm back to full throttle. Go through the high grip compression area right here and then start unwinding my hands, looking way down in the distance, letting the car run to where it's going to run. If you do it right, you'll end up all the way out here on the curbing, bringing the car back onto the track right as the curbing ends. Let me show what that looks like from outside the car. Super, super important corner because it's very fast. And it's scary. So coming on in, I've turned in, back to throttle. I left a little bit of chicken on this bone. I can get a little closer. Unwinding my hands, ending up all the way out here. Getting back on left side tires, left of the white line before the curbing ends, and this is not a 1X. On the exit of Blanchiment, the tendency is for people to drive the car all the way to the left for some reason. I don't know why. Leaf was the one that actually pointed this out to me, so thank you, Leaf, years ago. You don't need to do that. You're about to turn right in this little kink. Wouldn't you want to be the shortest distance on the right side? So keep the car on the right side of the track. Keep it right here. There's no reason why you need to go over to the left. Keep it right here. It's shorter. And then through the right-hander, you just let the car drift to the braking zone on the left side to set it for the bus stop. Coming up to the bus stop, we've got a really good brake marker, this white line right here. And we've got a really good initial spot, this bridge. So if you're not comfortable with threshold braking at the white line, brake at the bridge. Brake a little bit earlier, a little softer. The result will be the same. If you're really confident on the brakes, you feel really good, brake at the white line or maybe even a little bit later. But you won't get, frankly, if you brake at the bridge and just brake lighter and keep the car balanced, you'll have a better time than if you threshold brake. The only time I would recommend braking super late is if you're racing somebody that you're afraid is going to dive you into the bus stop and you need to try to outbrake them. So I'm going to brake right here, right at the white line. And this feels pretty sketchy braking here at this point. I'm going to let the car drift all the way to the left side, go all the way down to second gear. We're going to take a late apex here, super late apex. The goal is to try to keep the car mid-track on the exit to set up for the left-hander, because this corner doesn't matter. It's the left-hander leading onto the front straight is the goal. So there's a little bit of a bump on the way out. We end up about halfway. Turn it over to the left. No need to touch the brakes. Let the momentum take you. Late apex here. Get on throttle smoothly, but sharply. Use all the curbing, opening your hands to get the traction in the car to get you a good run across start finish. I like the bus stop in second gear personally, but you can do first gear. It has its advantages as well. It just tends to overslow me through the corner. So let me show you again what this looks like. The bus stop. All the way left side, brake, late apex, back on throttle. And that's a lap of Spa. I know we've run a little bit long, but that's Spa for you, and also the first classroom of the series, so we had to talk about the car a little bit. Any questions on Spa? This is your chance to ask. So you guys are experts. That's awesome. I love it.
Can you-
Talk a little bit about your favorite places to set up and defend.
Oh, passes. Very good question.
I was going to bring up passes too. Thank you.
Okay, so probably your best place to pass. Well, okay, the absolute position 1A to pass is at the end of the Kimmel, the big long straightaway. So let me fast forward it here. Get a good run coming through here. You get a killer run through Eau Rouge and Radion, and you are drafting on your opponent. You're right behind them. Drafts works really well in this car because they're shaped like a bar of soap, and you pop out, you get your pass done before the right hand of Lacombe. This is the best place on track to pass, absolutely best. The next place I would say is a really good spot to pass. Well, let me just do it chronologically because we're driving around the track. You can get a pass done here in the tight right-hander. You just got to make sure you get a good run. If you are equal with the car in front of you, like you're not actively gaining on them, where you can pop out and kind of sneak a nose in there, I wouldn't try it. Don't try to outbrake someone into this corner, because the tendency is whoever's on the inside is going to brake too late, understeer, and just door the person. I would make sure you get a pretty good run, or your opponent got a bad run, to where you can get alongside them before the brake zone. That would be a good spot to pass.
You can also see that the track is falling away right down at the corner.
Yes. So the tendency when you're trying to outbrake someone is brake later, right? If you try to outbrake someone here, your mistake is you're gonna lock up and you're gonna run through the corner. Well, if they're on your outside, you're just gonna lock up and run through the corner and run into them. So it's, again, unless you can get fully alongside someone to get into this corner, I wouldn't try it. But it is a good spot because it's a heavy braking zone leading into a relatively slow corner. You can take it too wide through here. There's lots of run out for the car that's on the outside. This is a passing zone on this track, frankly. No name, don't try it. It may be tempting to come out through here and you're like, man, he's going all the way over, or they're going all the way over here. I can sneak up on the inside. Don't do it. There's no room. There's only one line through here, and it's super sketchy. You run out of track really fast if you try to go too wide through here. There's a lot of mistakes I've seen somebody stick a nose in and then end up hitting the car on the outside because of it. I don't recommend trying that. Going into Puong, same thing. Puong is one way through it. You can, if you really know your opponent and you trust them, you can go too wide through here. It's just super sketchy. So unless you've tried it to do it offline, I don't recommend it. If somebody sticks there, if you're the car that's getting attacked and someone sticks their nose in here, I would lift, let them go, and tuck in behind them and try to get them on the exit. They're going to be slow on the entry, so you should be able to maybe maintain your momentum and get a pass on the exit. But until that point, really kind of focus on being safe. Now, if this is the last lap and you're racing for a podium position, okay, that's a different story. Keep context in your mind of when you want to do it. But I wouldn't initiate a pass through Puong. Coming out of Puong, this corner on the right is surprisingly an opportunity. Sometimes you can get a really good run through Puong, especially if your opponent doesn't take it well, and you can get alongside somebody setting up for this right-hander. I would only make this pass, again, like in the slow right-hander hairpin, if you can get alongside them or at least get up to their door before the braking zone, then this is a legitimate one because they're not going to be able to hold the line on the outside through here. If they do, kudos to them. They're going to have the next corner. But this car, the lead car, the ideal line is so wide on entry, it will leave so much room on the inside that you can stick your nose up here and outbrake them and just overslow the car on apex and make a good pass. So this is technically a passing zone. Coming into Stavolo, no, I wouldn't break into here or try to pass someone through here. It's too sketchy, too high strung. A lot of people try, and even watch 24 Hours of Spa or any GT race at Spa, somebody always tries to pass here, and somebody always ends up totaling their car through here. This is a no bueno zone. If you get past, lift, let them go, and then tuck in behind and try to get them elsewhere. Coming through here, I would say the second best place to pass outside of the end of the Kimmel Straight is coming into the bus stop. So all the way through Blanchimont. Don't pass through Blanchimont. There's only one line. Just go single file through there. But coming up into the bus stop, great opportunity to pass. You've been drafting on your opponent all the way through here. Pop out, outbrake them. Super slow right-hander. You should be able to potentially outbrake them, get ahead of them, and just kind of park your car and complete a pass. But this is probably the second best place to pass. Now, I can already hear people asking, what about La Source, turn 1? Super tight right-hander. Can't you pass here? Yeah, of course you can pass here. A lot of people try to do it. But my question is, why would you want to? You're passing someone right before the longest straight on the track. So you're sacrificing the most important corner. So you're going to be slow through the most important corner. It's going to make you and your opponent slow for the longest straightaway. So relative to the field, you're going to be slow, you and your opponent. And then you're also giving your opponent that you just passed a draft down the longest straight so they can just pass you into Lacombe. So I would never pass into La Source unless the car you're coming up on is either a lap car or if they've got something wrong or they totally get La Source wrong, like they just outbrake themselves, lock up, do something totally bad. I would never pass into La Source. It just doesn't make any strategic sense to do. So that's my passing zones for Spa. Great question. Any other questions?
That was great, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, we're almost 30 minutes over, so I'll call the classroom here. I will stop the recording. I'll stick around for a little bit. If you have any questions whatsoever, stick around. You can ask me. I'll try to answer as best I can. But for those of you in TV land and then also For those of you that attended here on Discord, thank you for your participation. Thank you for putting up with the long one. The next one won't be as long. I try to keep them to an hour. But enjoy season 14. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be fun. The thing I will also say that is if you have a bad race or two at the start of the season, okay, you might not be in it for the championship, but hey, we're out racing Porsches on some of the best racetracks in the world. What more do you want? So even if you treat it as an exhibition at that point, it's still fun to do. So come on out, even if you're not in the championship. But have fun, be safe, race others like you'd want to be raced yourself, and we'll all have a really good time.